inside the Gamecocks, the morning show, brought to you by our friends at Gamecock Traditions and built by the Barndo Co. And we are joined by a Hall of Famer. The great Debbie Antonelli is scheduled to, or been kind enough to schedule some time for us in her busy schedule as she travels all around calling basketball, as we all know that. But Debbie, I haven't seen you in a little while, and so there's no way we can talk. Mike is here too, Mike Morgan, about anything other than you to lead off. You're in the NC State Hall of Fame. You're in every Hall of Fame out there. It's always great to see you. Congratulations on all these amazing achievements.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie. It is beyond any comprehension for me that I would ever be able to align my name with any of the things that you just said. I'm just doing my job out there, working hard, trying to advance the game the best I can. And of course, it's great to see Mike, one of my partners through the years, a part of my journey as well.
Debbie, I was telling everybody how our introduction was doing some Gamecock women's basketball games for Fox South back in the day when Dawn was just getting it started. And then unfortunately, the fortunate part, we got to work together on a men's package in the SEC. The unfortunate part is that it was during the COVID year. So very often you and I were looking at each other like we are now on computer screens, as opposed to getting the camaraderie that you get when you're with somebody throughout an entire season. So hopefully we'll get a reboot, but it was still so much fun working together with you. And, I was saying this before, your knowledge speaks for itself on both the men's and women's side. But what I always loved about you, you're obviously a champion for the women's game, but you'll call it like you see it. There's things in the women's game that need to be improved, both the play itself, both the structure of the way we do things. It's growing like a weed, but I've always respected your ideas on how it can get better as well.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I do care about the game. I care about the people in the game. There are some things that I can say that coaches may not be able to, or a way that I can protect the game in a way that coaches just can't do it publicly. But behind closed doors, certainly we're all on the same page trying to advance the game. And we've had a heck of a run here. We just can't let this be, a spike in what we're doing. This has to become the new normal. And I think we're working that way. I don't have any say-so over the leadership and the directions that we move. I do consider myself a stakeholder to try to help advance the game when I can. There's a lot of people out there that don't want to hear what I have to say, to be honest with you. And some of them are in leadership positions, but that doesn't stop me from trying to do the best job that I can and using my platform the best way that I can use it.
Well, those people are nuts, because everything you do has a purpose, and it's always a good one. Debbie, we'll start with the ladies. Ladies first. Carolina fell yesterday to Texas in Austin. They beat them by 17 points just a couple of weeks ago, but it wasn't their day. It was the Longhorns' day. And Vic Schaefer yesterday, a good win for him and his club as they're in their first year in the SEC. They look like a national title contender. South Carolina is a national title contender, 57 in a row in league play. They haven't lost in the league since 2021. And that streak is now over. Now that we've seen Gamecock basketball under Dawn in this season through 24 games, what are their strengths? Mm-hmm. What are their weaknesses? And what teams match up best with them? Because obviously they'll blow a bunch of guys out, but there are teams that certainly match up better with them than others.
Yeah, the 57 is an unbelievable number, right? It's an incredible streak in one of the best leagues in women's college basketball. So that's no joke. But for Dawn, I'm guessing that's just a line in the game notes. That's gone. And it, because of the culture, the competitiveness of the culture, I don't think there's any issue here. Texas is a really good team. It's great that I thought they would split with them anyway. That's a tough place to go into, Moody, and play. They've got a really good home record there. Vic Schaefer is really good defensively, and they can score as well. So I think it's good that, it's never good to have a loss, but I don't want to just dismiss it like it's nothing. But I do think that because of the way Dawn administers her program, the players that she has in her program, they've got 10 McDonald's All-Americans. They've got a lot of talent. It's not going to be a problem moving forward. Their strengths are definitely their defense. There's no question they're a very good defensive team. I think one of the things about their defense that's interesting to me is last year with Cardoso at 6'7", protecting the rim. You were really good on your first actions. And if the offensive team got to the second or third side, you always had Cardoso there to protect the rim. It's a little different this year for them. They don't have that same rim protection. Everyone can be good on a one action offense. Being better in their rotations, second and third, is something that I think Texas exposed a little bit because they move the ball. When you go into the NCAA tournament, you play against teams that have 5 scorers on the floor, really move the ball. The SEC doesn't always have 5 scorers on the floor. Texas can, LSU can, I think Vanderbilt can. I think so. There's a little bit of some differences there, but on the offensive side, I mean, they're just an overpowering team. They're good off the bounce. They've become better shooters. And when you have a freshman and a sophomore who both come off the bench and are 1 and 2 in scoring, I think you got a lot of energy there to continue to keep the pressure on both sides of the ball, because they're very good defensively and they're really good in their transition game.
They've got Florida this week, and then they've got another one that's, kind of high profile, right, Debbie, coming up this weekend with the Huskies coming to town. I'm so glad they continue to play this series. UConn just I had to look and remind myself that they did beat Providence by 37, but that was coming off of that loss to the Vols. We won't have you on, obviously, before they play on Sunday. How about this matchup? What do you think about it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank Dawn and her staff for doing the Play for K game this year. It's the second year I think they've done it. And Dawn is so philanthropic around all the things that she does with her platform, and certainly helping women's cancers through the KL Cancer Fund is really important. And Dawn recognizes that we've all been touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form in our lives. So certainly Dawn has as well with her family. So that's the first thing. UConn, the thing I always say is what Dawn has is multiple defenders to take your best player out. So as good as Paige Beckers is, stopping her is challenging, but containing her is certainly capable because they have a lot of different looks that they can throw at Paige. I think the interior game is always the strength of South Carolina, and I think they have an advantage there. Although Sarah Strong, who is a freshman, who will be in contention along with Michaela Blakes at Vanderbilt and Joyce Edwards at South Carolina. I think those are the 3 top freshmen. I think Jelani Cambridge at Ohio State is on that list as well. Those are the top freshmen in the country. This will be an interesting matchup to see how Joyce and Sarah go against each other, because I think they could match up in some ways. But the pace is always important in this game, getting UConn in a quarter court game and allowing South Carolina to load up their defense, I think will be challenging. I think it's challenging for any team.
And they play it at the CLA, and that's always a benefit for
that is an advantage. I think a couple of years ago I did that game, first time that Dawn had beaten Connecticut, and it was an incredible atmosphere. And that was Aaliyah Boston's junior year, I believe, which what I recall about that game is not only how crazy the building was and South Carolina getting a win, but I thought at that time that Dawn had unleashed Aaliyah Boston behind the 3-point line, because she had never taken one, and she took one and made it. And I thought it was really that's what I remember about that game.
How many teams we mentioned? Mike mentioned the growth of the sport, and I mentioned Texas and South Carolina, national title contenders. How many are there, do you think, in on the women's side?
Yeah, I mean, UCLA has what South Carolina doesn't this year, 6'7" at the rim, who can block shots and score, make a post move, throw it in there, play through a double team, draw 2, pass it. She's good. And we saw that when South Carolina played them the first time. Obviously, Texas is good. I think you got to look at Notre Dame. I feel like and the Notre Dame Network this month of February, I am in South Bend for 7 games, some men, some women, but I'm going to be spending a good portion of my month of February in South Bend. And Notre Dame this week is probably based on the taping of our show, the timing of our show. The poll hasn't come out yet, but I expect them to move up in the rankings. They are a high-powered offense. They have a lot of firepower on the offensive side. Their team defense is getting better. So you're going to have to be able to score with them to be able to stop them, I think. I think they're the best team in the ACC. I can't sleep on NC State. You know, they're going to be moving up in the poll. They played really well and held Tania Latson, the nation's leading scorer, to 23 last night. So their backcourt is elite. They have 4 or 5 that can score in the backcourt. You can't have enough guards when you get to the postseason. So I'm not skipping past. I'm going off the top of my head. So UCLA, Texas, Notre Dame, South Carolina, LSU. I mean, I'm just going, you know, like there are some really good teams. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
That's my point. Is there's, you know, what Debbie 8 years ago, maybe not even that long ago, 2 or 3, you would probably rattle off. You're rattling off 6, 7, maybe 8 teams, maybe more. I mean,
it's good. You know, Dawn Staley's team has had a #1 seed 3 consecutive years. This will be another year where I expect them to be a 1 seed. Dawn has been the Werner Ladder Naismith Coach of the Year 4 of the last 5 years. I mean, you can't count them out. You know they're going to be there in the mix, and they have great big game experience, which I think is important when you get to the NCAA tournament. So that's why I don't think Dawn would have lost any sleep over her Texas loss. Plus the Eagles won, so I'm sure she was celebrating. Not even thinking twice about it, but they'll get back to business.
Yeah, she was definitely celebrating. The other side of basketball right now in Columbia is not as good, unfortunately. I know you haven't seen every game for the men, but they did just set a unfortunate program record with 10 straight losses in the SEC. Based on what you've seen, especially comparing them to year 2 under Coach Paris here, and Mike pointed out earlier, NIL is such a huge part now of college basketball. South Carolina is deficient in that area when it comes to other programs in the league. But who is this team in your mind based on what they were last season?
Well, first, let me address what you and Mike talk about with the NIL and the transfer portal and all that space. I mean, this is where we are, whether you like it or not. This is the landscape. If your administration wants to win, they have to find money. It is buying players. You have to pay for play. That's what it is. Now, you can have an opinion about it or not. It doesn't matter. This is where we are. This is the landscape we're in. I don't know many coaches that are happy on the men or the women's side. I work, you know, predominantly on the men's side in the ACC now, and then on the national landscape and the ACC on the women's side. And but I cover the entire men's landscape because of my CBS work on the men's tournament. There's no one that's happy. I've had coaches tell me my friends that were my friends 5 years ago won't be my friends in a couple of years because of the portal. We'll be taking their players. They'll be taking mine. It's kind of like I had a conversation with a coach this morning. Does your administration want to win? Because it's really not on you. It's really on raising enough money to be able to buy the players that you need. And the general managers that are all going to be hired and the people that are going to be added to the staff are going to have to make really good decisions in the portal. I mean, we could sit here and go through good decisions, bad decisions, who got what, who got paid, who didn't. And that's pretty much where it is. So the SEC overall has more money than anyone else. So if South Carolina is deficient in that category and they want to move their basketball program from the bottom to the middle, because that's the next step, then they're going to have to decide what they're willing to financially put forward. Because I think that's what it is. It's not about resources. It's not about travel. It's not about amenities. Everybody has the same stuff. Everybody runs the same stuff on their offense. It's about talent. In today's landscape, you got to buy it. And until we figure it out with a salary cap and or some contracts and more of a quid pro quo, if you will, like what real life is, nobody gets a handout in real life. You got to have a responsibility for it and outline that so that we get back an understanding of why college is important and what basketball is supposed to be about. remember, the NCAA's number hasn't changed that much on the number of athletes that go pro. It's still around 3 or 4%. So when you think about it in those terms, it gives you some conversation, right? It's really good conversation around the water cooler.
Well,
Well
Debbie, I
said.
co-sign on all of that. It's stuff I've been talking about on this show and others for a while now, and it is the new reality. And you and I have incredible access to coaches. And you're right. When I speak to them, when you speak to them now, a lot of them are miserable in a lot of ways because this is not what they got in the business for, to just get into bidding wars for players and then having to look over their shoulder constantly because there's continual tampering through third parties normally and poaching players off their roster. This is not what NIL was meant for at all.
And I get why Rick Pitino doesn't want his players shaking hands with anybody. You know, I get why. I mean, I'm all about sportsmanship, and I understand the value of sport, and I have used sport for, to raise my family, right? But it's unfortunate when you start looking at things like that. That just is kind of sad. The word transactional is being thrown around a lot, where this has always been a business based on relationships. And when you get into the bidding wars, you really don't know who's telling the truth. There's so much lying and over exaggeration on packages and what players may or may not be getting. It's really so cloudy. It's really hard to even decipher. That's why it's so miserable, because you really don't know who your guys are talking to when practice is over.
Just to hit on something you mentioned, and I can't help but notice this, like when you look at Joe Lunardi, we've known since the beginning that the SEC is going to lead the way and could have a new record. The record is 11, set by the Big East. Could have at least 12 bids this year. Second in that category right now is the Big Ten. To your point, these are the conferences that have the most money. These are the conferences that have the most TV money. You're right there in the heart of ACC country, and you do a lot of ACC men's games. And I maintain that, we have Paul Biancardi at our disposal, who does such a great job of following recruiting. And when I ask him about what's going on with the ACC, he says, Mike, it's not a mystery. The SEC has become the preeminent winner in recruiting, and they're getting more top 100 players than the ACC is. That never was the case. Never. And now it is. So as you're watching what is clearly a down year for the ACC on the men's side, what is the solution? Because, I look at it and like after Duke, there is a major drop-off. Clemson's a great story. But
Louisville's a good story too.
Well, Louisville's a good story, yes.
Louisville's a very good story. With a Charleston coach, I got you. But it just seems to me that the ACC is going to have to figure some things out if they're going to get back to what they were. So what's the solution?
Money.
Yeah.
One word.
And where does that come from? I guess is my follow-up question, because the TV, they just re-signed. TV gap, money gap, revenue gap is not changing. So how does the ACC make up for it? Can they make up for it?
Well, I think that's the solution, right? Is finding other streaming sources of revenue. And I mean streaming, not like TV streaming. I mean, like, where is the new revenue going to come from? I think the ACC is working on incentivizing their revenue share, which may take away litigation from Clemson and Florida State from leaving the ACC. There's so many things to unpack there. But honestly, I've been to every basketball arena in the SEC. I've been in every practice facility in the SEC. Same in the ACC. There's not a lot of differences there. The differences are the amount of money that each player is able to get because of the resources financially that each respective institution in the SEC and the Big Ten have. So if I read something about dipping into the endowments at universities to try to find a new source of revenue. I don't know. I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm just wondering where the faculty and staff are on all of these campuses around where sport has taken the college experience, and hopefully none of them are going to strike and say, we're not teaching these kids, until there's a source of revenue for a professor that has been on campus for 30 years that maybe isn't making anywhere near what the offensive lineman is making. So we'll see how it all plays out. There's a lot to fix, and it can't happen fast enough. To stabilize what right now is a free market, which capitalism at its best. I get it. You can't have collusion and antitrust rules, and there is collusion taking place, but somehow somebody's got to step forward and figure it out. And the NCAA doesn't want any more lawsuits. So however you structure it, it's got to be fair. And I don't mind the players making money. That's not what I'm saying here. I just want to make sure that we can sustain college athletics moving forward for the purpose of why we have it. And I'm sure university presidents are concerned about that as well.
You hit every nail on the head there, Debbie. I wish we could do this for another couple hours. I know you got to get you out of here, but we can't thank you enough. I know you're home now, so you're headed to South Bend this week.
Yeah, I'm going. Actually, I just got home late last night from South Bend. I'm going to Raleigh. I've got the Louisville NC State men on Wednesday, Miami NC State women on Thursday. And you guys know my son Patrick's a walk-on at Louisville. So I was in the arena on Saturday to watch the Miami game. So I did get to be there in person as a parent, which doesn't always happen for me. But I'm excited about the games on Wednesday. And Pat Kelsey's killing it. He is one of the best stories in college basketball this season. And that team is made up of what I say is a bunch of hardworking kids that are unselfish. And if you have those two factors right now in college basketball, you can win.
They take after the personality of their head coach. That's Pat Kelsey to a T.
Debbie, let's get the band back together here soon, okay?
Do it, man.
Let's talk to the brass, see if we can reunite for something.
I want to go to where the best games are. That's what I'm interested in. I want to see the whole college basketball landscape. And I tell our bosses all the time, you cannot possibly wear me out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's impossible.
Amen to that.
That's true. There's 3 people I know of that don't sleep. Ray Tanner doesn't sleep. Shane Beamer doesn't sleep. And Debbie Antonelli doesn't sleep. I don't know how.
I'll take that category with those
I don't
two.
know how y'all do it. I don't know how you do it. Can't wait to see you soon. We know we'll see you on TV as always. March is right around the corner. And then we got free throws shooting in May. So can't wait for that.
Thanks so much, guys. Great to be with you. Appreciate it.
You're the best, Debbie. Thank you. Debbie Antonelli, who literally is one of the best voices in college basketball.